Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Films and Stuff. I'm Ethan, sitting alongside MVP, which stands for Most Valuable Pete. Pete, good morning. How are you today?
I am good. How are you?
I'm great. It is the weekly stream or skip episode. That is a feature that longtime listeners know exactly what the rules are. New listeners may not yet know the rules of the game. Do you want to explain them in 15 seconds or less?
Oh
Plus
my
or
God,
minus?
15 seconds or less. Here we go. Ethan and I have prepared lists of TV shows for each other to watch. We watch at least 2 episodes so that we get an idea of whether that show is worthy of being streamed or skipped.
Could not have said it better myself. And where are we starting today? You've got something on Netflix. That's right?
That's right. So I'm on Netflix. I saw a show called Obliterated. And this is a pun of a title. It's got 2 meanings. Obliterated as in destroyed, as in, like physically exploded or destroyed.
Damage.
Exactly. And also obliterated as in, so let me give you the premise so you'll understand where the pun is coming from. The premise is that you have a bunch of military guys from the NSA, from the CIA, from the Army, and a bunch of other 3-letter American agencies.
Yep.
And they're put together as a squad to defuse a nuclear bomb that they've tracked down to Vegas. And the team is composed of a whole bunch of different stereotypes. So you've got your macho dude who's not the leader. You've got an old bomb diffuser who's kind of like a grizzled veteran who's seen everything. You've got a tech nerd girl. You've got a butch lesbian woman. You've got the quote unquote hot leader who's got, emotional trauma from some past event that's affected her.
Don't forget the highly disciplined goody two-shoes Asian.
Exactly, right? And then you've got like the super athletic, physically capable black guy. So it's like every stereotype and cliche you can come up for every race and ethnicity and minority. It's on screen.
Yep. It's a very representative group.
Clearly. And the whole point is that in the first episode, they set it up that these guys are super capable. They're really effective as a unit, and they're able to defuse the bomb. And then at the end of the episode, they're told, hey, you know what? Take a break. Take a holiday. You're in Vegas. You've done the hard job. Take some downtime. And so they throw a huge party and get absolutely wasted and get high on drugs and so forth.
They get obliterated.
That's the obliterated part of the pun. And then, of course, we learn that dun, 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 the bomb they defused wasn't the real bomb. And they've got 7 hours to find and defuse the main one. How do you do that when you're all hungover? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So that's the show's premises. So like I said, it's filled with cliches. It is a very juvenile show. There's lots of nudity. There's lots of cursing. There's, you'll see all sorts of dicks, boobs, butts, etc. This is kind of like targeted for like your young adolescent teen who's kind of like, oh yeah, I love drinking, I love partying, that kind of thing. You've seen Team America, right? World Police?
I have seen Team America World Police.
This screams of America, F yeah. Right? I mean, there's the scene in the first episode where the squad is literally shouting USA, USA. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's highly testosterone filled for a show that is, spoiler alert, I've also watched 1 episode so I can follow along a little bit, but I think you'll agree it's highly testosterone fueled for a show that tries to be a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like it's very
exactly.
macho at the end.
Yeah, it's like a combination of imagine 24 if 24 were set during spring break in New Orleans.
Oh, I was going to say, imagine The Hangover if the guys were special agents, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's a combination of both of those, right?
Yeah.
And so if you look at the show, it's got pretty good production values, like great
Yeah.
camera work, effects. It's slightly cheesy, like you'd find in like B movies. So like
Yeah.
when a guy gets headshot by a sniper, there's like a cheesy spray of blood that you would see in like those B movies,
Yeah.
but still pretty good overall otherwise.
Yeah.
And of course, the writing is super cheesy. Like literally one of the lines that I wrote down was, "You're the tits, tech chick." Yeah, I'm the tits. You know what I mean? Like it's not really funny, but it's the kind of thing that, very immature people are going to find funny. And I'm not saying I'm not immature. I'm quite immature as well. But this
True.
is like you would need to be super drunk and or super wasted and or super high and or obliterated, pun intended, to
Yeah.
really find it really funny.
I mean, I agree with everything you've said. I mean, this is kind of appealing to the lowest common denominator. I mean, the plot is thin at best. The nice thing about the plot is that it's very straightforward.
Yeah.
It doesn't kind of like insult your intelligence with a lot of plot holes. And I guess that gives me a little bit of comfort that if they wanted to make this a more serious movie based around the plot, it's actually not a bad plot, right? You think that you solve a mission, you have a big party, and you're not in tip-top shape. And then actually, it raises kind of like one of those practical questions, which is, when are you actually off the clock? You're supposed to be James Bond, but even James Bond, has a day off, right? Allegedly. Let's see what this guy's like, or this group is like, when they're not in their tip-top shape. So I have to say the plot is actually okay. I like the idea that the cast is not anyone that I've heard of before or seen before, although everyone does have a good bio. It's nice that there's no Kevin Hart or there's no Ryan Reynolds to kind of like overpower every scene,
Yeah.
I think that's refreshing. I agree. The overall writing is pretty basic. There's a few kind of witty things, but I agree. Just when you kind of like want to say, well, that was kind of clever, that was kind of funny, it goes downhill into, a very juvenile kind of fart joke. But overall, I thought it was not terrible. Let's go to the ratings. What did you give this?
So I gave it a skip.
Yeah.
I can see someone keeping this on in the background while they're working on something more important or, doing something else, but it's just not for me.
Look, you just said something, and in real time, I changed my score. I originally gave it a mooch, but that's not really what I mean. Because again, a mooch is that you ask for your brother's or friend's password because you want to keep watching it. It's your guilty little pleasure, but it's not really something that you're going to pay for. It's absolutely not a must subscribe. And I guess what I meant was I would keep this on in the background if I was on a flight and this was on and there was nothing else on. I wouldn't turn it off. I would keep my headphones on. But yes, absolutely, it's a skip. I'm not going to go back to this and watch more than the first episode that I've already seen, even though I didn't hate it.
I can understand that.
All right, so that is Obliterated on Netflix. Good effort by Netflix. Maybe we should just point out, though, I mean, this could have been something where it was Kevin Hart, Ryan Reynolds, The Rock. They spent $200 million and it was totally shite. Credit to Netflix. They cast and budgeted this for, I think, what it deserves. And I honestly think that it's better than seeing J-Lo in a terrible movie. This probably, I think, gave it a little bit more legs in my view, just because it's not a star-studded cast.
Yeah.
Nice to see some new faces. All right, my friend, that is Obliterated. I had also on Netflix, and you'll find this very interesting, I had a series called The Gentlemen.
I'm so excited to hear about this, by the way.
Now, The Gentlemen may sound familiar to you because it is some type of spin-off or continuation of the Guy Ritchie movie.
Yeah.
This stars a pretty good cast led by Theo James. We've seen him in a lot of stuff. And Giancarlo Esposito.
Oh, yeah.
Very solid cast. And I never saw Guy Ritchie's The Gentlemen. This is a first season. It is 8 episodes. And I guess it's about the same thing, which I'll summarize it and then you tell me how this relates to the movie. Theo James, who plays an aristocratic gentleman, his father passes away. And apparently in, let's say, British high society, the estate, including the title, will pass to the eldest son. In this case, the father has broken with tradition. And when there's the reading of the will, it passes to Theo James's character is named Eddie. It passes over Eddie's older brother and goes to Eddie himself. Eddie is totally caught off guard by this. You know, he was expecting to receive a house, maybe some cash or something. He was not expecting to receive the entire estate. His brother is livid, totally, caught off guard, stomach punch for him to be passed over for the estate and the title. More to the point, we find out that the older brother is deeply, deeply in gambling debt to some type of like gangster. And the real reason he wanted the estate was not just for, I guess, ego purposes, but he wanted to sell the whole thing, cover his gambling debts, which were several million pounds. And that was his way out of this mess. So that's obviously not going to be the case. Theo James finds a solution. Turns out that the estate, and his father was well aware of this, had some type of, let's say, agreement with I hate to say a drug lord, someone who was in the drug trade, kind of growing and processing marijuana on a distant corner of their massive, massive estate. The father was basically, charging them rent in cash, and it was a very symbiotic relationship. And we find out that the father kind of knew that it was in the best interest of everybody to keep this relationship ongoing. And he thought that his second eldest son, Eddie, was a more responsible, more mature character to manage the complexity of this relationship rather than his eldest son, Freddie, who's a little bit of a drinker, gambler, womanizer, irrational thinker. Apparently the father kind of thought that he'd muck the whole thing up. And then we just go on into a series of complicated, disputes and kind of the old Breaking Bad model where you fix one thing and you create an unintended problem and the characters jump from problem to problem, solving them in a sometimes humorous way along the way. How's that for a summary?
I love it.
How does that dovetail with The Gentlemen, the Guy Ritchie movie?
It sounds like this is a spin-off and not a retelling, because in the Guy Ritchie movie, we are looking at Matthew McConaughey. He's the drug lord.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So that's where I think this is. So this is kind of like a story from somebody else's viewpoint, I guess.
Ratings wise, it's Netflix, it's Guy Ritchie, it is Theo James. Production value is very, very high. And not just that, when I say production value, don't just mean the cars and the cameras. The writing is quite good. The plot is quite good. The characters are quite good. Not just the characters, but also, the actors playing the characters. It's very, very well done. Certainly this seems like it's intended for multiple seasons. I have to say, Netflix has taken great care to make sure that this comes off in the right way. It has, I think, all the kind of like little subtle things that sometimes we scream and pound our fists on the table about. It's got good pacing. It's got good character development. It's the right mood through and through. I still gave it a mooch. Maybe this will become an endearing series like Breaking Bad. Maybe it will become a must subscribe. I saw 2 episodes and it just kind of lacked, I don't know, something to kind of like really pull me in. I kind of like Theo James. I think he does a good job. I would not recast him, but I just don't feel like it's an iconic character. I don't either love or hate him. I don't really love or hate any of his siblings or other people in kind of his troop or his posse. Very well done. I've given it a mooch, but I think that's a little bit generous. Again, if we just kind of go by the scale that we just set out, kind of like in Obliterated, would I call you Pete and say, hey, do you mind if I borrow your password? I really want to watch another episode. I don't think I would waste my wasta on something like that. It's probably a skip for me. I don't think that I'm going to come back and watch any more. But I have to say, it is well done enough that under the right circumstances, I could be intrigued. And if another episode was on, I probably wouldn't turn it off. But to be fair, I don't think I'm going to go back and look at another one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to check it out when I have time.
You should.
Because I really enjoyed
You saw
the
the film. Yeah.
Just, on a more infrastructural basis, I generally tend to like Guy Ritchie movies and Guy Ritchie.
As do I. We both had Netflix this week. The Gentlemen by me, Obliterated by you. 2 very high profile shows, by the way. I mean, We can absolutely say that we've done our duty by reviewing these 2. Tell us what we've got for next week.
Next week, you're going to stay on Netflix. And you're watching a show which I had originally put on your list and then taken off because I realized that it's a foreign language show and I wasn't sure whether it would be worthy of our time or not. But you're watching a show called Cleo.
With a K.
With a K. And I am going to be on Amazon Prime to watch yet another show in this new genre of old people who are coming back into the limelight for like some kind of fantastical either action or spy thriller movie or TV show. I'm watching Grey.
Oh, with Patricia Clarkson.
Patricia Clarkson, who is 65, and she headlines this spy thriller.
Okay. I'm excited to hear about that on the next episode of Streamer Skip. Pete, before we take leave, would you like to list all of our YouTube and social media jazz so our listeners can comment on what they think about Obliterated, if they have seen it or if they want to see it, and also The Gentlemen, both the movie and or the new Netflix TV series?
That's right. Your mission is to not get obliterated. And the first thing you guys need to do is like this video, leave a comment below, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell. Tweet us at F&S Podcast or DM us on Instagram at Films and Stuff Podcast.
Listeners, we appreciate you tuning in to this week's episode of Stream or Skip. Tune in next week when Pete and I will have 2 more reviews so that you know whether or not you should be streaming or skipping something. That will be on the next episode of the Films and Stuff Podcast. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.